Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll be splitting my time with my honourable colleague for York Durham. Mr. Speaker, for most of Canada's history, the United Kingdom was Canada's largest trading partner. As late as 1941, the United Kingdom, and not the United States, was Canada's largest export market. And for those watching who wish to find this data, I found it in a Department of Industry, Trade and Commerce publication titled Canada's Trade Performance 1960 to 1977, Volume 1, General Developments, that was published in October of 1978, which is available on the Department's website. I welcome this debate on Bill C-13 because it gives us an opportunity to debate how we can increase trade and investment between Canada and the world. While the UK is no longer our largest trading partner, it remains an important one. Measured in two-way trade, the United Kingdom is Canada's third largest trading partner, with two-way trade valued at $63 billion last year in 2024. And measured in terms of exports, the United Kingdom is Canada's second largest export market. Yes, second largest export market, bigger than China, second only to the United States. According to Adam Murray at EDC Canada, as of 2025, and I'm quoting here, quote, as of 2025, the United Kingdom is Canada's second largest destination for total exports of goods and services valued at $40.2 billion. So there is a lot of opportunity here to build on increasing exports to our largest second export market, the United Kingdom, with agreements like the one in front of this House. And there's an opportunity to increase exports with a country that is a Western liberal democracy, a country that not only shares our values, but also shares very similar institutions like this very House of Commons. And so for that second reason, it's good to increase trade with the United Kingdom. But while the United Kingdom is Canada's second largest export market this year, I think it's important to take a step back and to look at the bigger picture on Canada's exports. And the picture is not good. Canada's exports to the world, expressed as a percentage of our GDP, have massively declined over the last 25 years. Our global exports, expressed as a percent of our GDP, went from 44% in the year 2000 to 32% in 2024, a massive drop. I want to make 3 points about this big drop in exports. First, not all of this drop is attributable to a drop in exports to the United States. While global exports dropped by about 12% over the last 25 years, 12% of GDP, not all of that is attributable to the United States. In fact, if you look at our global exports excluding the United States, it too has dropped over the last 25 years by some 2%. The second point to make about this massive drop in global exports is that most of this massive drop took place before the arrival of the Trump administration south of the border. And I think that second point is a very important point to make. The third point I'd like to make about this massive drop in these exports, most of which happened before the arrival of the Trump presidency, and some of which has happened to our exports outside of the United States, is that the big reason why this has happened, I would argue, is because Canada has become uncompetitive. No one would dispute that argument, that we have become uncompetitive as a country. And the fact is, as reflected by the decline in our exports over the last number of years, is that fewer and fewer people outside of Canada want to buy our products. Fewer and fewer people abroad want to buy Canadian goods and services. And that's because of tax policies of this government that are making it difficult to attract domestic and foreign investment, leading to a situation where Canadian companies invest in plant capital and equipment at a rate far less than their foreign competitors. Tax policies that lead to a situation, which Jack Mintz has argued in his paper called the Big Bang solution for our uncompetitive corporate income tax system, has led to a situation where the marginal effective tax rate on the services sector in Canada is almost double that of other economic sectors in Canada, such as manufacturing, forestry, and agriculture. A tax rate on a sector that is supposed to be the future of the Canadian economy, the tertiary sector, the services sector, and yet it faces a marginal effective tax rate that is almost double that of many other sectors in the Canadian economy. It's a result, I would argue, of regulatory policies that are stifling major investments, such as trade corridor infrastructure. Canada's trade corridor infrastructure is abysmal, and the current government has done little to address that fact. Let me highlight two examples of our abysmal trade corridor infrastructure. To my knowledge, we are the only major OECD country, major OECD economy, without a single national highway running from the Atlantic coast to the Pacific coast. We have not a single national highway. In the United Kingdom, you can get on the M Series highway and drive from Bournemouth all the way up to Aberdeenshire in Scotland uninterrupted on a 4-lane divided limited access highway. In the United States, you can drive from New York to LA on multiple interstate highways that are 4-lane divided limited access highways that began construction in the 1950s under the Eisenhower administration. In France, you can get on autoroutes that will take you from one part of France to the other on a limited access 4-lane divided highway system. We have not a single highway like that in Canada. In fact, what we call our Trans-Canada Highway is Highway 7 that leads out of Ottawa here on the way to Toronto. That Trans-Canada is a 2-lane paved road, much of which is interrupted by hundreds and hundreds of driveways and intersections and traffic lights. You cannot drive from Halifax to Vancouver in this country without encountering thousands of driveways, hundreds of intersections, and dozens of traffic lights. Another example of our abysmal trade corridor infrastructure is the Port of Vancouver. You know, the World Bank several years ago commissioned a study on the world's top 350 or so global ports. And the Port of Vancouver ranked second to dead last in terms of efficiency. Second to dead last in terms of efficiency. Yet, none of these issues are on the government's national interest projects. None of these issues are being addressed by the current government. And that is why we have had, that is in part why, Mr. Speaker, we've seen a drop in global exports to countries excluding the United States around the world over the last number of years, and why global exports expressed as a percent of Canada's GDP have gone from some 44% back in the year 2000 down to about 32% today. Mr. Speaker, I'll finish by making a final point. The government missed a huge opportunity in negotiating this deal with the United Kingdom to address the plight of some 120,000 Canadians living in this country. These are Canadians who are receiving UK pensions which remain unindexed, an issue that has festered for a number of years, and this was an opportunity for the government to address the plight of those pensioners. Pensioners who live in the United States, Spain, Germany, France, receive indexed pensions, but not in Canada. The government missed a huge opportunity to address the needs of these 120,000 Canadians in negotiating this deal. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions and comments. Question et commentaire. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I must say I look forward to the current leader of the Conservative Party's election platform, where he costs out having a four-way divided highway from coast to coast in Canada. And why don't you throw in the other coast while you're at it, Mr. Speaker? You know, the members just littered all sorts of misinformation onto the record, Mr. Speaker. He tries to give the false impression that people around the world don't want to invest in Canada. I remember standing up in 2024 in this very same spot talking about how Canada was #1 in the G7, #3 in the world in terms of receiving foreign investment, Mr. Speaker. People and companies around the world recognize the stability that Canada has to offer, and they've been investing in Canada. In terms of exportations, I don't know where he's getting his stats from, Mr. Speaker. The exports for Canada overall have been on the increase, not on the decrease. I question, where does the member...
The Honourable Member for Wellington Halton Hills North.
Mr. Speaker, I'll just reply to the honourable member's question and comment by simply repeating the facts which were obtained from Statistics Canada. Canada's exports, expressed as a percent of our GDP, were 44% of our GDP in the year 2000. They were 32% of our GDP in the year 2024. And by any analysis, that is a precipitous drop.
Question et commentaire.
Questions and comments. The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Always a pleasure to hear from my colleague who has brought documentation and who is well informed. He spoke about a drop in exports due to a lack of Canadian competitiveness. But this lack of competitiveness has not been brought on solely by taxes. The forestry sector is going through an unprecedented crisis because we don't add enough value. We sell raw materials to the U.S. and we're somewhat at the mercy of their markets. But over the years of this government was in power, they never helped the forestry sector process its products more. Forestry businesses are referred to global affairs who tell them that nothing could be done. We're so scared of the U.S. that we don't want to do anything to help the sector. Could my colleague comment? I would like to say thank you to my honourable colleague for that question. I agree. Not all problems we are going through are due to taxation. Some of them are also due to regulations that govern ports, infrastructure, trade. We are having a lot of trouble exporting more products to Europe and Asia due to the fact that there's not enough capacity at the Port of Montreal, the Port of Halifax, or the Port of Vancouver. We don't have the capacity to export more. Forestry products in Canada are in competition with other commodities and other Canadian trade goods. And we have no ability to truly increase exports through these ports.
Rockies.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the member. A very thoughtful and well-researched speech. I wonder if he can tell us why 120,000 Canadians who are affected by the UK pension, why do you suppose the government did not deal with that when they had the opportunity? I have lots of people in Kootenay, Columbia, Southern Rockies that are in the same boat. Thank you.
Great question.
The Honourable Member for Wellington Halton Hills North.
It's inexplicable why the government didn't use the leverage it had in this situation to advocate and get a deal for the some 120,000 Canadians who are receiving an unindexed UK pension. I want to thank my colleague for raising that question in the House. It's inexplicable. For much of the past 20 years, there's not been an opportunity to use leverage with the United Kingdom government to get this deal. But the UK was desperate to get into other trade deals such as the CPTPP, such as other bilateral and multilateral trade deals precisely because of Brexit. Because the United Kingdom had left the European Union, they were desperate to get into these other trade arrangements. And so this was a real opportunity for the government of Canada to use this leverage to advocate on some 120,000 Canadians that are in desperate need to have these pensions indexed.